introduction. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. If a candidate would like to a rebuttal, they will have 30 seconds for rebuttal. And each candidate has 2-minute closings. So basic ground rules, we've all been here. You all have been here. You've been doing this for a while. So before we get started, we'll start off with the introduction. We'll start off with Mr. Sear.
Thank you. Everybody knows me. I'm Darren Sear. I'm running for mayor. I just want to say thank you to our DPW workers, water and sewer workers, police and fire personnel today, National Grid, as well as Comcast and Verizon. They've been out there working since late last night, throughout the day, trying to get power restored, trying to get trees picked up throughout the city. It's very important that if you see a wire laying on the ground, a low-hanging wire or a tree branch that's hanging over, wires, please do not go and attempt to clean it up yourself. Let the professionals do it. This has been an extremely unbelievable fall storm, nor'easter. We've had winds in excess of 70 miles an hour today. But I just wanted to say that to everyone. I've lived in the city my entire life. Grew up here, worked here, been on the city council for 16 years. Lynn has always been a part of my family. I go back generations, going through public schools, being a part of the community, volunteering over the years. So I've just always been a part of the community, and I'm really excited about the future of our city and the direction that we can go in. There's obviously two different directions that we can choose. I respect my opponent's views and his vision, but I have a completely different vision, and I'm going to ask you to vote for me on November 2nd. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Jared, you are next.
Thank you so much. First, I just want to thank Lynn Community Television for this opportunity, and would like to echo Councilor Sear's gratitude for the workers that are cleaning up the city today and dealing with the aftermath. Much appreciated. So I'm on the school committee in my third term, and I'm running for mayor to help with the recovery from COVID-19 and to push for growth that benefits the whole city, that includes all of us. My day job, I'm a law professor at Northeastern. I'm also a dad to my young son, Henry, who just turned 2 last week, and a husband to my wife, Catherine, who's a nurse midwife at Mass General. I got started in Lynn founding a legal aid practice that works with low-income entrepreneurs and small businesses in support of community growth. My office was actually just right upstairs from the studios here on Union Street. And from the beginning, I saw the importance of the connection between education and economic development for the city's future, and was elected to the school committee 6 years ago. I'm excited that in this race for mayor, I'm able to draw on the deep experience I have on education issues from my work on the school committee and my work on higher education, and the deep experience I have on city issues like housing and economic development from my work as a lawyer and a law professor. I bring a fresh perspective from that work as a lawyer and a law professor. I've worked with other cities on issues like economic development in addition to my work here in Lynn on those issues. I also have a record of being there for people when they need it, as someone who is open and accessible and dependable. I've done that time and time again in my work on the school committee, working with students and teachers and parents, and particularly working with parents. My ability to speak Spanish has been particularly helpful. In addition to a record of being there for people in the now when they need it, I also have the ability to lead towards a longer-term vision. That vision that we're building in this campaign is a vision for inclusive growth, growth that benefits the whole city and includes all of us. I look forward to discussing the issues more this evening. I've been really grateful to have the opportunity to build that vision through conversations with voters, thousands of voters knocking on doors all over this city, and am excited to have the opportunity to discuss more this evening. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for those introductions, and also if you two want to keep a track of time, you have the timer up there, and also to your line of vision right there. In turn, we'll give you the notifications. Yellow is for 30 seconds and red is 10 seconds, and the second time red is up, that means your time is up. So you all ready to get this started?
Absolutely.
All right, and the first question, we will start with you, Councilor Sear. What do you plan on doing about a senior center so that we can give our seniors something they deserve? This is a community question from Paul Emmons.
So we absolutely need to have a senior center. It's unacceptable that we haven't had one for the last 2.5 years. The RFP has gone out. By the middle of next week, I believe that they're supposed to be coming back. But I also believe that we should have satellite senior centers, and I also think that we should have free transportation for all the seniors that live throughout the city, so that they can, wherever they live, they could have the ability of being able to get to a senior center.
All right, thank you for your response. Jared?
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. This is a top priority for the city. A city of our size absolutely needs a senior center. It's something we're sorely missing in the city right now. And so, one of the priorities for looking for that is to find something that's centrally located, that's accessible, so that, there's a lot of seniors that live in the downtown area who would really depend on access to the senior center. And then as we are developing senior housing in other parts of the city, having satellite offerings, having a transportation network will be just as important. But I've been thinking about this as a top infrastructure need, and it's also really a mental health need to have that place where people can come together, particularly after the last 1.5, 2 years where we've been forced to be apart. And you can absolutely tell by talking to seniors that this is something that is really missed in the city right now, and something we hopefully will have the opportunity to move forward quickly, particularly with the opportunity we have to really upgrade the city's infrastructure, the city's buildings, and get us the senior center that we deserve.
All right. Thank you both for those responses. Let's move right along to our next community question. This one, we're going to start with you, Jared. And this one comes from Kathleen Lowry. Her question is, how do you propose to bring in more light industry or manufacturing business to our own residents who need to earn a real living wage with health and retirement benefits?
Great question, and I think this is a really important need for the city for a couple of reasons. One, we want to be building, supporting commercial growth in the city as a great opportunity to diversify the city's tax base, to take pressure off of residential taxpayers. It also offers a really promising opportunity to bring more good-paying jobs to Lynn, and as the question mentions, to develop pathways for Lynn residents into those jobs. I think there's a promising opportunity working with Local 201, the union of the GE plant, on their campaign to encourage GE to invest more in Lynn. I've been honored to have their endorsement of this campaign and look forward to the opportunity to work with them on this effort. There's been a lot of progress on this issue. Lynn Tech has upgraded its machine shop and is ready to be educating the next generation of machinists. The state is involved and invested in this work and its support in upgrading Lynn Tech, and GE is as well. And I think the next mayor is going to have to continue that effort and really find the right decision makers at GE to make sure that people understand the good work that's happening in Lynn on workforce development. There's other opportunities as well, and I think it's going to be absolutely a priority for us, if elected as mayor, to be putting the city forward to those light manufacturing companies as a great place to do business with all the basics that you need to build on top of.
All right. Thank you for your response. Darren, you are next.
So I've always said this, our city has always been a city of industry. We've always had the GE, Norelco, Nissan's Bakery. All those factories have either downsized or completely left the city. I really truly believe that our future industry is development, which is going to create high-paying jobs throughout the city for everyone, bring disposable incomes, which will support our businesses in the downtown area. We absolutely need to do something. I always say this, the only way we're going to break the cycle of poverty in the city of Lynn is through education and higher-paying jobs. No one can live on $15 or $20 an hour. It's unfair to even think that anybody can do that. In a community where the average income for a family of 4 is less than $50,000, we have to work with those families and help them out. I truly believe that we can come up with a real plan so we can create affordable housing in the city of Lynn, and we can do that through development, through the future industry. We should also be looking at life sciences, bringing those into the city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I know you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, just
30 seconds.
30 seconds,
Yep.
yeah. And less of a rebuttal, but more just building a point on life sciences, because I agree that's absolutely a top opportunity, one that we should really be looking hard at. That's a booming industry. We're miles away from the world, one of the world capitals of that industry. And there's an article in the Globe today about the continued boom in that type of real estate, of that type of manufacturing, and some of the troubles that they have in the current locations that they are growing in Kendall Square and the Seaport. And so absolutely the City of Lynn should be making a play for those investments.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. I know St. Mary's got the STEM building too, which kind of helps. That will help with that as well. All right, we are on to question number 3. So this one, Darren, we'll start with this one. City reserves have improved tremendously since 2018. What plans, if any, do you have for using those funds?
So when I became council president, we had less than $1 million in our reserve account. One of the big reasons that we do have $28 million in the reserve account is because of the work that the council has been doing with the mayor's office. We've brought in over $12 million in building permits alone. So we need to really build those funds up. $28 million is not enough to have in our reserve account, especially when we have a budget that's well over $410 million. Our school budget, it's $140 million. So obviously, I'm sorry, our school budget is $160 million. We bring in $140 million in tax revenue from our businesses and from our residential. So what we have to really do is start planning. That's why I say development is the way to go. It'll bring more revenue into the city. Then we can start using that revenue so that we can start building new schools, take care of the $500 million worth of infrastructure that we have to take care of, roadways, fix our city buildings. It's that simple. It's economics.
Economics it is. Jared?
Thank you. Definitely exciting to be having moved forward with the city's financial situation. The current administration, the mayor, working with the council and the city workers and everybody at that table was able to really put us in a much better position than we were. We're not out of the woods yet, and so maintaining fiscal discipline is really important to be able to build on the progress that we have, to be able to continue to make these long-term investments. We absolutely have a backlog of capital needs in the city, fixing the city's infrastructure, the roads, the sidewalks. We talked about the need for a new senior center. In the near term, we got to make sure that we are setting aside enough money to take advantage of the opportunity to build a new Pickering, which is moving along with the Massachusetts School Building Authority that finances school construction. We also, as a city, are facing the same issue that a lot of employers are, which is problems with staff retention. And there's a lot of employers that are struggling to hire right now, that are struggling to retain. And given where the labor market is at, we have to factor that into our budget as well, and being able to invest in our city's workforce and the school's workforce to be able to retain our great people.
Definitely. Thank you both for those responses. And we are just moving along here. All right, we're on question number 4. All right. As discussed in our school committee forum Monday, it will take some time before there can be any shovels on the ground for new schools. No, you're chair of school committee and you work for the city council. What can you do in the meantime to ensure safe and effective learning environments for all? Start off with Darren, and Jerry, you follow. You can
First.
start up. Yeah.
So I did get a new school built, Marshall Middle School. We have 28 schools in the city of Lynn. 14 of them are more than 100 years old. We've got kids that are sitting in trailers. To me, that's unacceptable, completely unacceptable. The conditions of our schools is deplorable. Classical is already 25 years old. The new Marshall is 7 years old. Lynn Tech is 50 years old. So we really got to come up with a real plan. We can't afford, the city of Lynn can't afford to be building one new school every 5 to 10 years. We have to come up with a real plan so that we can build 4 or 5 schools at a time. We have to sit down with the governor, we have to sit down with the MSBA, we have to work with them, get them to understand the density that's here in Lynn. When I got Marshall Middle School built, they were only going to approve us for 800 students. So what I did was I actually rented a bus and I got the MSBA to come here to Lynn and drive through the neighborhood and see how densely populated that neighborhood was, how many kids lived there. They increased the number to 1,200. Within a year, it was at 1,400. Our school population keeps rising every single year. From June, when kids are leaving, and coming back in September, on average, we're bringing in another 500 to 700 more kids in the city of Lynn. We really have to come up with a real comprehensive plan that's going to work for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You can take some extra time. I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
Well, it's one of those questions.
No worries about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed. This is a really important issue, and part of your question is about what we can kind of do in the meantime, right? And I think the safety is always going to be a top priority. We need to make sure that every school is safe for everybody to enter every day. And that's just mandatory for all in all of this. We're going to have some opportunities to make really important targeted improvements with some of the federal money that's come to the school district, and there's a plan in place to start to make those investments. Some of them have been made over the last year using that money, and then as that moves forward, there's continued investments to be made. But building new schools is absolutely a huge priority for the city. So we are on track, hopefully, in the process to be building a new Pickering, and that's something the next mayor really needs to carry forward and develop. But then we need 4 or 5 new schools after that. And it's just not going to be possible to build those new schools in the time that we need under the current system. And so the mayor needs to play a really important role in building the coalition to get the state to reform its school construction formula. Right now, there's a cap on the reimbursement of the construction of new schools, which hurts Lynn. There's per certain types of costs that are not included in the reimbursement, and those need a legislative fix if we're going to be able to move this forward. And this is something that is going to be a top priority for us.
Yeah, and you both could get a shot at this. Just for me, adding on to this, how can we avoid what happened several years ago with the whole Pickering thing, the first go around? How could we avoid something like that from happening again, as far as like the voting and stuff?
So
Each gets 60 seconds.
Yeah. So when we did Marshall, we had community involvement right from the very beginning. Get people aware of how important it is that we need these schools, even if you don't have children that are going into our system. Everybody that lives here has to understand how important education is, how important a safe place is. A building that you can walk into that's state of the art. We have to start preparing our kids at an earlier age than we are for life. Not all kids that live in Lynn are going to be able to afford to go to college. So we have to give them other trade or whatever it may be. But we actually start after training kids right from the moment they go into school, right through all the way up into high school. I think Lynn Trade is probably our most important school that we have right now in the city of Lynn. We can use it to our advantage. We can add on to it. We can make it bigger, do all the things that we have to do. There's a waiting list just to get into that building.
Great, yeah. So I think that there were a lot of factors what happened with the Pickering. I mean, one difference where we are now versus where we were then is we're in a lot better shape financially as a city. And so that's going to be easier for us to make the ask to do the investments. And so that's something that we can build off of as we maintain the fiscal discipline, and we're going to free up more of an opportunity to make those longer term investments to get us out of the hole we're in terms of school construction. Another important issue is around the process and really making the most of the opportunity that we have with the MSBA. And this is something I've worked on the school committee. We've made it one of the goals of the superintendent to be providing these regular updates, even at this point in the process, before the intensive planning and conversations have moved forward. And that's just something we're going to have to continue to do, is make a real effort to get that information that we have now out into the community, because that's a really important part of transparency. It's not just making the information open and available, but really making a proactive effort to go out and share that information. And that needs to be done in different ways as the city involved, and having the ability to do that, to reach people where they're at, via technology, with the city and school websites, social media in multiple languages, I think is going to be key to building the momentum, the consensus that we're going to have to build to make the most of these opportunities. And as mayor, I'm committed to really playing a leadership role in that.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you both for that. And we move on to another topic that's been it's been a very, very big issue for a while. This is the Kings Beach. We've been so much happening over there with that. So the question is, there's been a lot of questions from the community about cleaning up Kings Beach. Can you detail how your mayoral administration will provide leadership on the issue at Kings Beach? And we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. I totally agree. This is a huge priority for the city. It's a big infrastructure need to be able to do the work that it's going to require to have a clean beach. First of all, it's unacceptable that the Kings Beach is polluted as often as it is. The cleanup of the Massachusetts Bay at Boston Harbor is one of the biggest environmental success stories in the country. And the one beach that's still polluted in Massachusetts is ours, in Lynn. And that's just not acceptable. And so we need to absolutely bring the folks to the table that can make these improvements that address the situation. So Lynn Water and Sewer, the City of Lynn, the Town of Swampscott, the state agencies, the federal agencies, everybody has a stake. It's an issue that cuts across bureaucratic lines. And when you have issues like that, you need someone who's going to provide the urgency, who's going to continue to move the ball forward, even when there's a lot of other stuff going on. And I think that's something that I bring as mayor. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, when the legislature was holding hearings on potential uses of the federal funds on infrastructure, I submitted testimony about the need for those funds to be spent on cleaning up Kings Beach. And so I absolutely think this is something that the mayor has a really important role in driving forward, and we'll be excited to take that role if elected mayor.
All right. Thank you for your response. Darren?
So this has been an ongoing problem for years, and every time we try to come up with a solution, there's always some roadblock that's put up. It's a state or a federal problem, and it's now been kind of turned over to us to try to fix it. It's a problem that Swampscott's water and sewer system is just not up to date. They're trying to do something over there. Lynn, every time, we're having 100-year storms every year now. Mm-hmm. That's what the problem is. We don't have a big enough facility to handle the amount of water that's going through the system. We're in the process of receiving $180 million from the CARES Act money. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that the Lynn City Council had a say as to where this money was going to be spent and how it's going to be spent. We can absolutely use this money. It could be as little as $4 or $5 million. It could be as much as $25 million to fix the problem. It's gone on way too long. Too many fingers have been pointed at whose fault it is. I'm just fed up with it as the ward council, because that outflow pipe goes down Easton Ave. And you have communities like Swampscott and Lynn that are combining water into it, and the amount of development that's taken place, and the amount of chemicals that we use on our lawns. Some people believe raw sewage is going into that pipe. It absolutely isn't coming from the Lynn side at all. So.
She's having issues with that.
So is that our bell? Or?
I guess. We got the broken bell. Don't worry about the bell. We're doing great.
Is she being paid, or is she in a print?
We're all doing great. We're doing great. That was a great response to the question. You both are doing well in keeping with the time frame. That was funny. All right, as we move on, all right, All right, this is another thing. I know this was talked about at last week's forum, so bring it up again. So we'll start with you, Councilor Sear. What do you think are both the positive and negative aspects of having an unarmed crisis response team in Lynn?
So I don't know enough about it, but from talking with law enforcement officers, people that are in the business, we've got to really look at this. We really have to examine it and see how it can work. I am in favor of more training for our police. I know they actually do have people that they call to respond to a situation where police officers feel as though they're not needed at a certain point. But a lot of times, because of the issues, whether it be someone who's ODing and acting out of control or someone with mental health issues, by the time 911 is called and the police are responding or a paramedic is responding, there's a reason why. It's mostly because either they can't get in contact with the health person that's usually helping these people, or that the person is out of control. So I need to learn a little bit more about it. I know that they use examples of Seattle, Washington, or somewhere like that. That's on the other side of the country. I don't really know what's going on there. I'm open to it, but I want to get everybody to sit at the table, from the police to the paramedics to the 911 operators, to know how we're going to do this, how we're going to set it up. To just say we're going to do this, I don't think that's, being responsible, to be honest with you.
Has there been any communication with the groups that are going to be involved with that?
Continue I've talked with them. I don't agree with everything they're saying, but absolutely, sit at the table, keep the discussion going.
Okay.
You need to do that. That's what it's all about.
Right, definitely. It's the discussion is happening. Right, Jared?
Thank you. Yes. So, in terms of the positives, I think one positive is something that community leaders have identified as a real need and a really exciting potential solution. I know that they have made a really strong case for the need through public hearings that took place over the course of the last year and a half. And conversations with a lot of stakeholders. I admire the work with the Lynn Justice Coalition that they've done with the City of Lynn, with the Mayor's office, with the Lynn Police Department. So I think another positive there is that partnership is growing and evolving, and I appreciate the contributions of all those stakeholders. In terms of negatives, I think, because that's what the question asked. I think anytime you try something new, there's going to be unanswered questions. That's both the opportunity and the challenge of new ideas, is that there's going to be things that need to be answered for the first time. That requires a lot of work. So I'm committed to doing that work inclusively with the Lynn Racial Justice Coalition, with the Lynn Police Department, with the Lynn Fire Department, with all the stakeholders that care about public safety in Lynn. And I think there's a lot of great work a lot of those conversations have started to happen, which is how we've gotten to where we've gotten with the City Council approving the pilot investment in this year's budget that the mayor put forward, and those conversations and that work will continue.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just add something? So I just want to make sure that everybody understands why I'm so concerned. It's the safety of the responders, whether it's being the unarmed response team or the police officers or the paramedics that are going there, but also the people that are calling. There's a reason why they're calling the police or the fire department to come and help them. So that is my concern, and until that can be satisfied, I'm more than willing to keep sitting and learning as much as I can about this and keep the discussions going. Jared wants to.
Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Sher. I think, it's hard to fit all the positives and negatives into the 90 seconds. I think another positive is it's an opportunity to add a skill set to the public safety team in the City of Lynn, people who are specialized in certain kinds of situations. It's certainly not something that's going to be taking away options from folks. For people that are concerned about their safety and want a police officer on the scene, that's going to continue to be available. So I think that's really important in thinking about like you said, the positives and the negatives. So I see the positive as adding to the team.
Definitely. It's just a good thing that there will be open discussion about this. That's, one step in the right direction. And before we move on, we just like to remind our audience next week about Election Night Results Show here live at Lynn Community Television beginning at 8 p.m. You'll get all the results. You'll have folks calling in, maybe folks dropping by that may have won the race and may have lost the race. You don't know. You don't know who's going to drop by. It's going to be a night. Dan Cahill, Magnolia, Contreras, and Joe Scanlon will be on at 8 p.m. So make sure you tune in for LCTV's Election Night Results Show next Tuesday, November 2nd at 8 p.m. And we are continuing with our questions. We're halfway through. A lot of great responses we've been hearing, so we're just gonna keep on going here. I'm just with some of these questions. I'm gonna be flexible. Could do some audibles. Just due to the importance of the subjects that are at hand. There was last week the MBTA. The steps were condemned over there. The commuter rail. So the question is, we know the mayor's office doesn't have direct authority over the MBTA, but we have received numerous questions from the community about public transportation issues. Also, the issue that happened over there at the Lynn Garage. So our question to you then is, how will you advocate for improved public transportation and improved MBTA facilities in Lynn? And we will start with you, Jared.
Great. Thank you for the question. Obviously, what happened at the MBTA parking garage is totally unacceptable. It's dangerous. And it's an eyesore, and it's incredibly frustrating that a really gateway to the city, what could be the heart of the downtown, is in the condition that it's in. I think that, like you said, the mayor doesn't directly control public transportation in the city of Lynn, but absolutely is going to be key to bring the city where we want it to go in terms of making good jobs and good housing accessible, easily accessible to everybody, improving public transportation. So that's fixing the MBTA parking garage, absolutely. It's also improving bus service to make it easier to get where people need to go who are taking the bus. It's electrifying the commuter rail. I think that in the long run, that would be awesome if we could find a way to get the blue line here, and I support that and will advocate for it. But in the medium term, electrifying the commuter rail offers the potential to have something approaching rapid transit that's quicker, cleaner, more efficient, more frequent, and something that I would fully support. And the premise of the question is what would we be doing? And I think building coalitions, working with our state and federal partners. The electrification of the commuter rail benefits Lynn, but it benefits the entire environmental justice corridor if it's doing the Newburyport Rockport line. So that's other communities as well. And so working collaboratively with those other communities to make the case for the regional need is going to be really important for us to make progress on this.
All right, thank you for that.
I found an alternative.
That's great, the digital age, we have a digital bell.
Technology, I tell you. Darren, you're next.
Thank you. So the condition of that building is really unacceptable. And part of the problem is there's not enough people that want to use it. So the MBTA really doesn't want to invest any more money in there. So with the development that's been taking place in the downtown area, the amount of people that are going to probably be needing that train station, it's going to get the MBTA to take a look at it. They're already talking about investing $35 million into that building, into the parking garage, as well as the platform. And as mayor, I think the city should take over the control of that building and the responsibility of it and maintain it, secure it, make sure that people will go to a safe, clean platform to be able to take the train into Boston. People would rather go to the platform in Swampscott or in Salem. And the tens of millions of dollars that's been invested over in Salem is because of the development that happens over there and the amount of people that need to use it. So you could do the exact same thing here in Lynn. I think that we should have a better relationship with the governor. I mean, and God bless our state legislators. But Tommy was chairman of transportation for years. Became the mayor of Lynn. He should have been going back to his colleagues, the connections that he had made, and trying to get something done there.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just wanted to add something about that as we're thinking through what public transportation means for the city of Lynn, because I think part of this conversation, part of the conversation that's happening in the region, really around the country and the world, is what does work look like in the future? Because people's commuting habits have changed. We're having the forum in here tonight, but the forum for counselors and school committee members was held via Zoom, and there are sort of going to be changes in the way in which people get to work, and Lynn should be on top of that, thinking that through and thinking about how to grow its downtown to make the downtown attractive in and of itself, and supporting small local businesses, the kind of which would be we want to be taking the commuter rail to come here.
So if I can just add.
One more.
So I've always talked about the development of the city of Lynn. For years, we've been talking about making it a destination site. All the way back into Mayor McManus's office 25 years ago is when the talk began to use the auditorium to bring people into the city. So that's a perfect example of why we need to have that platform set up so that people from surrounding communities can take the train, as they do when they go into a Boston Bruins game or a Celtics game. And I've been hearing about the Blue Line my whole life, my entire life. I know that there's been all kinds of studies done and all this other, but the reality of it is the only way we're going to get the Blue Line to come into Lynn is if the MBTA creates a spur from Wonderland over to the train tracks, and you are still talking years down the road. The amount of money that's going to be needed, the amount of infrastructure that's going to be put into the train tracks itself, especially in the GE area, because it falls below the floodplain.
Yeah, definitely. Last response.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and to Councilor Sears' point about the shows downtown, attracting people, that's one of the reasons why it's so important to pursue that electrification of the commuter rail, because the commuter rail is built for people that are working in town 9 to 5. And so there's not trains that's going to run that's going to bring people in time for a show in downtown Lynn to go to the restaurants on the commuter rail currently as it's structured. And the Blue Line is a great long-term goal, but in the medium term, getting that electrification of the commuter rail allows it to be participating in these other types of uses of this public transportation network that's already exists. We already have the tracks, and it's in the capital plan for the MBTA. They've committed to making this investment, and so the City of Lynn, along with our coalition partners, need to keep the pressure up to make sure that happens.
Yeah,
So just a real point of information, the Blue Line tracks are completely different than what the train tracks are. So you would have to refit the whole thing if you were just putting the Blue Line onto the train tracks. You would have to retrofit the whole thing. You would have to actually build a separate set of tracks for the Blue Line to come into Lynn. And I agree that electrifying the train would be an unbelievable thing. But the reality of it is, I believe that before it gets to Lynn, there are going to be other communities that surround Boston because they're built up. They have the need for the transportation in those communities. That's why I keep stressing about development in the downtown area, creating a destination point, bringing in people with disposable incomes that are working in Boston that need the transportation.
Definitely, and I'd love to continue. We just got to move. We got to move on to the next one, just because.
You get an extra rebuttal.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's up to you.
It's up to him.
Yeah, it's up to him.
This is great TV. So let's.
Yep.
This is the last one. Okay. All right.
Great.
Great TV right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just really to add one more point there about the electrification of the commuter rail. It's just another reason why that having that frequency of the service is so often, because the reason why you don't have more people going, or one of the reasons why you don't have more people taking the commuter rail now, and why other communities the ridership would be higher, is because of the inequity of the fares. It costs $15 round trip to go from downtown Lynn to Boston. You drive 5 minutes to Wonderland, and it's $4 round trip. And so looking at the commuting patterns as they exist today shortchanges Lynn. It's the same thing what happened with the ferry. The ferry wasn't given enough time to take root, and people judge the ridership numbers without making that long-term investment to be able to build up the ridership around it.
All right.
Thank you. I'm only kidding. I'm just.
Hey, that was great. That was a good discussion
There
right there.
were more added to that.
Yeah, I mean, this could go on for a while. I mean, shameless plug. Smokey Robinson's going to be at the Lynn Auditorium, so shameless plug right there.
Yep.
Okay, another heavy topic. Housing. Housing's been it's an issue being discussed for a while. So, the housing plan has been a popular and divisive topic during this campaign season. Now that November 2nd is around the corner and this is likely the final forum, can you please explain your position on it for the audience tonight? And I lost track who we started with the last one, so Jared, you could go ahead.
Great. So I think my position is that the cost of housing is a large problem for the city of Lynn. The rents are skyrocketing. It's pushing people out of the community they love. It's harder than ever to buy a new home. People that want to build a life here, that want to make a long-term investment in this community are having a hard time doing so. It's an economic development issue as the employers struggle to retain their workforce in the area. And it's really a human rights issue for people that are struggling to keep a roof over their head. So the cost of housing needs to be a priority for the next administration. Where it currently stands is that the current mayor, recognizing that this was a problem, working with the Lynn Housing Authority, got together some grants to hire the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, the regional planning agency, to help put together a plan to address this. I served on the steering committee of that plan. There's a process that unfolded over the last couple of years with half a dozen community forums, hundreds of comments from a wide range of stakeholders, developers, landlords, tenants, housing advocates, and put together a plan to address this. So that was the starting point, so we could get on the same page that this was an issue and look at some available tools based on best practices that were vetted by these experts. That plan passed 8-2 in the council. It passed 5-0 on the planning board, and it's going to fall on the next administration to implement it.
All right. Derek?
So, I'm one of the ones that didn't vote in favor of it. And the reason I didn't vote in favor of it, because I really truly believe that it's a document, a meaningless document, to be honest with you. I am 100% in favor of affordable housing for everybody. And I think we can really come up with a plan, but to force developers and to have inclusionary zoning in the city where you need to have a percentage of affordable housing, it's not going to work. Developers aren't going to come here. It's not working in the communities that it's already been imposed in. Quincy, Somerville, Chelsea, Everett. The reason why we have such a need for affordable housing is because residents of those communities had to move here because they couldn't afford to live in those other communities. I got to be honest with you, I am sick and tired of outsiders coming into Lynn and telling us that we need to do a better job to help people with housing needs. We've been doing that for as long as I've lived here. Other communities have to step up. 15% of our population live in affordable housing. That's a lot more than any other community. I mean, and I'm saying this with all due respect, Jared, that if you tried to introduce this plan in the community that you're from, the whole town would be screaming and hollering. The towns that surround us. Why aren't we going to them and asking them to create affordable housing there? That's why there's such a need here. We're always last, and that's the big issue. We are the last community in this entire area that's looking at development. And that's why a lot of developers do want to come here. But with that being said, There are other communities they can go into. I've been talking to hundreds of developers since I've been council president, working with them. Not one of them were included in the housing plan. Less than 600 people participated in that. We're a city of 100,000 people. I didn't see people from up in the Ward 1 area who would wind up having to pay more taxes because in order for us to create affordable housing in the city of Lynn and make it so that it's for Lynn residents, you would have to give tax incentives to the developers. I think we can really come up with a real plan. Developers are willing to do linkage. They're willing to put money into a program so that we can help people with rent, so that we can help people obtain the American dream, home ownership. As I said earlier, that there are people in the city of Lynn, families that are making less than $40,000 or $50,000 a year. They're never ever going to be able to afford a house. This housing plan doesn't give them that opportunity.
Yep. Give you a chance to rebuttal?
Yes, please. And I assume I have some time.
Yeah, you got time.
All right, thank you. So the cost of housing is absolutely a regional issue. This is something that the entire region, really parts of the country all over, is struggling with. But it's also affecting our community. And I'm running to represent Lynn. And I'm working to help our Lynn residents afford to stay in this community. And yes, these ideas have been tried in other cities that Councilor Sear mentioned, but just because a policy has been tried somewhere else doesn't mean it can't work here in Lynn. And there are plenty of Lynn people who agree that this is a top priority, including 8 of the 11 colleagues that Councilor Sear works with, who care about the Lynn housing needs of their residents and agree that this was the right step forward. So it's not something that's being thrown at us from some other place. This is something that the community has articulated is a need, and that community leaders, like Councilor Sear's colleagues on the council, have agreed that there's a need. And the inclusionary zoning is working in those other communities. You can talk with those other communities, and for those of us that are willing to reach out and find out, they are creating affordable housing units. Rents are continuing to go up across the region, and the answer to that is ultimately to create more housing opportunities of all types across the income spectrum, from market rate to affordable. And when we say affordable, that affordable is a term that's personal to that particular resident or family. That's a percentage of their income. So housing that's affordable is generally seen to be housing that costs 30% of a resident's income, spending not more than 30% on housing. And the issue that we have in Lynn right now is that almost half our population is spending more than 30% of their income on housing. Almost half of our population is cost burdened by housing. And that's a pressing issue for the city of Lynn to act on. This is the plan that the city has come together to put forward to act on it. And there's going to be plenty of conversation about each of the recommendations that are in that plan. They have to be studied in depth to actually be implemented. That's why you start with a high-level plan to direct the conversation, to identify the issue. And right now we have a really strong coalition of people that agree that this is the issue and that there's a way to move forward on it.
All right, thank you. We could go on for that, but I gotta move on.
No, we need to go on, please.
I gotta move on for time purposes. Yeah,
I get it. I really do.
Yeah, but I have to move on. It's time purposes. I would love to go on with that, but we gotta move on for time purposes. All right, we just got a few more questions left. All right, we talked about public safety for a while, so here's a public safety question. What would be your approach to public safety in fostering the relationship between police and the community? Oh, yes, sorry.
To continue the community meetings that have been going on between the police department and the community. We have a new chief, and the previous chief, Lenny Desmaris, he was always reaching out to the community. I know Chris Reddy is always doing that as well. He shows up at many of the events that are taking place in the city. Back in the 90s, we had neighborhood police officers, we had neighborhood satellite police stations. I really think that we should try to bring that back. The community needs to get to know who their police officers are, and the police officers need to get to know who their community is. And you have to start that at an early age again. Education, right from the first grade right on up. Back in the day when the police officers, and we've got a few of them that are doing it right now, riding around on bicycles, they ride in the parks. They have a program at Lynn Tech where they have basketball games with the Lynn police and gang members. It's just an ongoing thing that we got to continue to do. Work with the police, work with the community, the neighborhood. Lynn City Council has to be involved in it, and the school committee has to be involved in it. So we need to have weekly, if not monthly, if not weekly meetings.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that response. Jared?
Thank you. So I absolutely would say that continuing the work that the Lynn Police Department has been doing in collaboration with the Mayor's office, with the Lynn Racial Justice Coalition is absolutely an important way to address this, to build trust. I think the Lynn Racial Justice Coalition has put forward some really exciting potential solutions, and the Lynn Police Department has been really open in working with them, and I really admire that for all those that are working together on this. The Lynn Police Department made progress with body cameras, which was something that the community had asked for, and ultimately over time, to have trust, you need to have communication. And so the efforts that the Lynn Police Department are making to communicate with the community, the efforts that the Lynn Racial Justice Coalition is making to create those opportunities for a wide range of stakeholders to hear about the experiences that people have had in the community that have sort of undermined that trust at times, is also really important, to get everything out on the table so that we can work from a common understanding of what the issues are. And I think that more opportunities to have those kinds of dialogues, and then to show tangible progress is another way to earn that trust. The body cameras was one example. Moving forward with the Unarmed Crisis Response Team is another example of tangible progress to show the community that we're listening, and to allow the Lynn Police Department to show leadership on this issue as well.
They do the coffee with the cop as well on certain Saturdays as well at the cafe.
Land of a Thousand Hills,
yeah. Land of a Thousand Hills too.
So definitely been there. Yeah.
There's also that. All right. Oh man, we come down to our last two questions, and this one we'll start off over here, Jared. What city services would you like to improve, if any? And please explain.
Thank you. So, I think we want to be improving on all fronts. And every chance we get, but I think one area of improvement that comes up a lot in conversations around the city is the issue of trash and litter. I think it's obviously a quality of life issue for residents who don't want to walk around and see trash in the streets and on the parks. It's a public health issue at times, in attracting rodents and depending on the type of waste, and it's an economic development issue for small businesses. Small businesses put a ton of work into creating a storefront experience for their customers, and that can really be undermined stepping out into the street and seeing trash blown around. So I think that's definitely an area that's I think is an area of focus for improving services. I think one area the city could be working on this is to make it easier to notify City Hall when there's an issue. Whether it's through the city's website or other types of programs that other cities have used to be able to give immediate feedback that you can track its resolution is one way to do that. The city has made some progress in making targeted investments in the current budget and hiring another DPW worker to work on litter, to getting better equipment to be cleaning the streets. And those kinds of investments, particularly on the infrastructure side, are something that we should continue to think about, particularly as we are getting that opportunity to really invest in the city's long-term buildings and equipment. This is an area where I think we can do better in keeping our streets clean.
All right. Eric?
So litter is absolutely probably the biggest problem that we have here in Lynn, and it falls on all of us. falls on city workers, but it also falls on the residents, too. We all have to play a role in cleaning up our city. And as mayor, that would be one of my top priorities, is to make sure that we get the message out there. I know that Lynn City Council has been working on this for a couple of years. We've been doing cleanups all summer long. We've had dumpster days where we've allowed people to come. And we've had probably several different dumpster days throughout all the wards in the city, allowing people to dump bulky items in there. And that's something that we have to look at. We have to give people more of an opportunity to be able to get rid of stuff. You see mattresses laying all throughout the city, or couches. It's unacceptable. The mayor's office, in my opinion, should be having monthly meetings with neighborhoods, with businesses, finding out what their concerns are, what we can do to help them, and what they can do to help us, working together. It's about community. Lynn is such a unique place where no matter what neighborhood you live in, or belong to, or a part of, every area has a different issue. So it could be anything as little as getting a sidewalk repaired to be muggings and drug dealing going on. That's the spectrum that goes on in the city of Lynn.
Yeah, definitely. And there was just a dumpster day over this past weekend, if I'm correct, at the DPW Cavanta Day, I believe, just happened this weekend. So yeah, there's always something happening in the city. Oh man, we've come to our last question. I hope everybody has been enjoying this forum. Oh man, and shout out to everybody who's watching and commenting on Facebook. I know that comment section is full of responses. All right, this is the last one. Darren, you'll lead off this one. If elected, what would you like to have accomplished by the end of your first term?
2 hotels on the Linway, a new Pickering, and at least the start of 2 or 3 new elementary schools. Very important. More police officers, more firefighters, new firehouses in the city of Lynn. I'd love to be able to increase our reserve account to well over $50 million. That's what my goal will be. Bring in development into the city that's going to be positive for everybody, create a program for people to obtain their own home, no matter how much money they're making. If people are working and you have a single parent household, help them with their rent if they're not making enough money. I want the same things everybody else does. I want a clean, safe place. I've said it before that the only way we're going to break the cycle of poverty is through better education and higher paying jobs. And as mayor, that's what my goal would be.
All right, thank you for that response. And Jared?
Thank you. I would hope that in 4 years that we can look back and feel like we really made the most of this opportunity that Lynn has. That we've grown, we've taken advantage of the interest from development and have projects that the city is proud of all over the city, and that people feel like they've been included in that. That not only have we brought development projects, but that it's created good jobs with benefits for Lynn residents. And that we have been able to include the community in those planning considerations so that the neighbors are just as excited about that project because it's addressed some of those issues that people have with traffic and parking and the environment. I think that having a new Pickering, absolutely, and as well as a plan to build multiple schools and the ability to do it because we've been able to put together the resources and the thinking to come up with the solution that we have to our overcrowding issues in the schools. Another goal looking back would be that we've done something about the cost of housing, created opportunities for affordable housing for folks who want to stay in the community to be able to afford to stay, in addition to creating pathways for people that want to get into higher paying jobs to be able to do that. And you see how all these issues are interrelated. We want to be preparing our students in the schools to have the skills they need to pursue the careers they want. They're going to get into good paying jobs that they can afford to live in the city they want to live in. And it starts with us having that vision of those issues together to be able to make progress on each of those individual issues.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you both. This has been great. This was great discussion, great back and forth. It was some great television. Hope everyone enjoyed it. And now we have reached the time for each candidate to give their 2-minute closing statements. We'll start off with Jared.
Thank you so much. Thank you, McCall. Thank you, Councilor Sear. Thank you, Lynn Community Television, and to all of you for watching, for this opportunity. I think it's been a really hard year for all of us. Hard year and a half with the pandemic, for a lot of different reasons. The loved ones that we've lost, for teachers and students having to adapt to learn in new ways, being cut off from their normal support system. For frontline workers, frontline healthcare workers like my wife, Catherine, and other essential workers who've had to really step up and do so much to be able to keep us going. To small businesses that have had to pivot, multiple times over the course of this pandemic to survive, and are still figuring out what their new normal is going to look like. Businesses like the ones that I work with during the pandemic, partnering with the city in my capacity as a law professor to provide free legal help. So it's been a challenge, and we need to recover fully and fairly. And we also need to really take advantage of the opportunity that we have right now to grow, to make that once-in-a-generation infrastructure investment that we know the city needs, and to take advantage of the momentum that we have coming from the current administration with development on the horizon, and make sure that it happens in a way that includes all of us. And I'm running to provide the forward-thinking leadership that we need in this moment to recover and grow together, and I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared, for that. Darren, you're next. Camera 3 is your camera.
Thank you. I believe in leadership by example. I think I've proven that, not just as a city councilor for 16 years, but throughout my life being involved in the community in the city of Lynn. I really want to move this city forward. I have a vision for our city. I want the same things everybody else that lives here wants. Safe place to live, a great place to raise our families. I want my sons to live here. I want to be able to visit my grandchildren in the city that I grew up in, that I'm always going to be living in, that I'm always going to be a part of. My wife grew up here. I'm about bringing development into the city that we all can benefit from. We need to bring some type of industry here so that we can create higher paying jobs, so that we can bring in more revenue in the city, so that we can support our school system, so that we can support our infrastructure that needs so much work. I've lived here my entire life. I've been a part of Lynn. I'm from Lynn. I'm for Lynn. I eat, breathe, sleep Lynn. I've always been about Lynn. I love this community. No one will work harder for you. No one will put in more hours than I will. I'm not just a 40-hour-a-week kind of person. I'm 7 days a week. You can ask anybody that's worked with me, anybody that knows me, anybody that knows what I've been involved in. I put 190% into it. I guarantee you that I will make our city better. I guarantee you that you will see development. I guarantee you that we will have better education, better schools in our city. Those are promises that I promise I will keep. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for those responses, and thank you both for being here and participating in this forum. And to our audience, just a reminder, next week, November 2nd, election night results show beginning at 8 p.m. We will have live results as they come in throughout the day, from the day I should say. So please, you'll see there might be some guests dropping by in to talk with the panel. So be sure to tune in Tuesday, November 2nd at 8 p.m. Also, if you missed any of the 4 forums from Lynn Community Television, visit lyntv.org and go to the video on demand to watch the past forums that Lynn Community Television hosted, and also other forums from community organizations that were put out throughout this election period. So please go to lyntv.org. Also, make sure to keep up-to-date information on our Facebook page. Visit Lynn Community Television on our Facebook. And yeah, that's it. You guys have been watching our 4th and final candidate forum. Jared Nicholson, Darren Sear, November 2nd, go out and vote and be sure to make your voices heard. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Affordable housing is a problem that is touching every single